Hey everybody, Mike here. Today we're doing our third interview, although it might be the second one that gets posted because my laptop really does not want to render the second interview. Not really sure why. Maybe it's because the guy I interviewed was all the way over in Germany. I don't know. But today we're going to meet with Richard, and I don't know how to pronounce her last name. I'm not even going to try. Who's published one thing so far on DM's Guild. And we'll talk a little bit about what it was like to be a first-time creator, what he likes to play. His girlfriend, whose name I don't know, I'm sorry, is also going to talk a little bit about how they worked together on this and a little bit about the product. So, Richard, why don't you introduce yourself and either introduce your girlfriend or she can introduce herself, and then we'll start asking each other questions.
Yes, my name is Richard Duryea.
And I'm Allison Larrabee.
Hi, Allison.
Hi.
So how long have you guys been playing Dungeons & Dragons? You play together, I assume. How long have you guys been playing?
Well, I've been playing D&D for about 3 years now.
Okay.
And let's see here. A couple months, maybe?
A couple months.
Done like 2 one-shots now, and that's about it.
Great. So you can really talk to us about what you like about gaming. I mean, I've been playing longer than you guys have been alive, maybe longer than your combined ages even. I've been playing since the game was first introduced in the early 70s. So, so 3 years. So how did you come up with this idea? Is this something you ran for your campaign and then thought I should publish it, or how did you come up with the idea?
So I've been, as a player, I've been doing it for a little while. And my sister was our DM. We were running a game called the Scepter Tower of Saltmarsh.
Okay.
The Scepter Tower of Saltmarsh, and you know that was fun and all, but I have a writing background, and so I'm just like, this was pretty good. I've got some quips with the adventure. It wasn't our DM's fault. There just wasn't a whole lot of information for her to use.
Sure.
So I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to use my writer's background. We're gonna make something fun. And just as an experiment, we'll just do this because I got started doing adventurers guilds. So I'm just like, let's just do this one shot, this 2 to 3 hour adventure. We'll see how it goes. And so Allison and I wrote it together, and I ran it, which was also my first time DMing, which was probably a setup for disaster, but I'd say it went really well.
Oh, it was so much fun. That was, like I said, probably my second time really playing. And it was a blast, for sure. But I would say he's more of the brains of the starting of the idea. He kind of had a couple of ideas, and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting, and then asked some questions, and kind of just through the questions and, looking through some of the books and started piecing things together to create a really fun adventure.
So tell us a little bit about your adventure. I think it takes place in Eberron, but I can't remember if that's right or not. And yes. It's a submarine adventure, right?
That is correct. So I guess it started off with, okay, I need to I'm going to have to railroad the adventure a little bit. So I need to put the players in a place where they're not going to want to leave, or they couldn't leave or something. So I'm like, are there any submarines in D&D? Let me just check. Okay, somebody wrote one for one adventure, so they're very, very rare. Like, okay, where would it make sense to put one? It would make sense to put it in Eberron. So, all right, and then I just started doing a whole lot of deep dive into lore. Like, okay, how does this work? And then I was just scratching my head a whole lot. I'm like, okay, we were thought about doing this, but that's not going to work because that's in this world, but not Eberron. So it took some head scratching, but I'd say we eventually got there, and I'm really happy with the final product.
He did all the head scratching. I said, can't we just do what we want? And he said, no, we're going to do it this way. And I was like, cool, have fun with that. Did all the really deep diving in and making sure the lore worked, and I was more of, I guess, the general picture of fun ideas kind of a person.
Sure. So you ran it for your friends. What was the feedback on the adventure? Is it your first time being DM too? Were you nervous being a DM for the first time?
Considering, well, I have a writing and also a stage acting background, so that part I wasn't worried about. And since we wrote the adventure together, I knew that adventure forward and backward.
Sure.
So I was really confident going into it. I guess the question like I had was like, what are the players going to do that I'm not prepared for? And one of our players, Evan, he managed to do something that I wasn't prepared for, but I was able to go because he decided to. If you're familiar in the world of Eberron, there's this thing called Dream Lily. So he decided to spike a health potion with it. So I'm like, I'm not 100% sure what that's going to do, but we're going to follow the rule of fun. And even though this person took the health potion, they're still going to be under those effects. So we just followed the rule of fun, and the poison player, she still had fun. So that's what really mattered. And somehow nobody died. So I don't know how.
Yeah,
So
it was interesting. Granted, I felt like I was kind of cheating because I knew I was a player and I already kind of knew the premise and some of the background. So I was trying to be really just like not say things at certain points, but definitely also when it seemed like they were getting kind of stuck, my brain was just like, I just want to do this though, because I know this is here. Yeah, so it was definitely a fun time, and he did a really good job running it and keeping it interesting. And
so what was it like to turn it from something that you wrote that you could play to something that you felt good about publishing? How did that process work?
So I knew pretty much from the get-go that I wanted to put it out there so that other people could use. And so that's why I was so focused on the lore, making sure that it made sense. Because we want to have the Jehuagin creatures in it. So I'm like, okay, where are they? Like we can find them here, and maybe over here. So it's like, okay, so start there and then get to this other part. But yeah, so just because I just wanted to just make sure how do I put this?
you wanted to make sure that could fit in the world and how people would play it, that would just kind of blend in and make sense.
Oh yeah.
And not too much extra background that we had to put in to justify it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really good feedback for a lot of dungeon masters or people who are going to publish, right? I mean, sometimes you guys probably haven't seen a lot of these old first and second edition adventures, even third edition, but they would have pages of backstory that the dungeon master would never use. And no player would ever find out about. I mean, it was great fiction. It was really interesting to read. And some of the products that I hope to kickstart this year have a little bit of fiction in there, but it's a couple of paragraphs every once in a while just to kind of show how you might use it in game or whatever. So one of the things I really liked about it, you sent me a copy to look at way before we agreed to do this interview. One of the things I really liked about it was that it was clean. It didn't have a lot of extra stuff in it. I knew right away how to run it. It had enough stuff that I understood the motivations of everybody that was involved and what was going on, but it didn't have a lot of extraneous stuff that it didn't need to have, which I thought was really great. So it's your first product. And like I said, I think I've done 11 now as of this morning. Do you have any questions for me about anything about publishing? By the way, my internet connection just went unstable, so who knows what's going to happen here in a second.
I guess what I want to know is what do the people want? What do other DMs need? Do they need adventures? Do they need supplements? Do they need new creatures to fight?
So that's a really good question. I don't know if you follow any creators online. MT Black, super successful creator, started on Dungeon Masters Guild, has done a lot of other stuff, or is doing a lot of other stuff. He recently did a poll, and I think a couple hundred or more people replied, and they're looking for tier 1 adventures. So 1st through 5th level is the most, if you look at the stats on Roll20, on Fantasy Grounds, on D&D Beyond, most characters are 1st through 5th, 7th level. Most adventures that sell the best are kind of at that level. There's exceptions, right? Like a really good high level adventure sells a lot because there just aren't very many high level adventures, right? Like Candlekeep, I don't know if you can see it over my shoulders, Candlekeep Mysteries came out today, right? That's, I think, 17 adventures. The first couple are pretty low level. I mean, I've only skimmed it. I literally just picked it up at my local gaming store right before this interview, but what I'm told and what I read is that people want low-level adventures. Actually, I just published On the Road to Candlekeep today, first level or fourth level, depending on what you want to do. Like a little sidetrack, like 1 encounter, 99 cents. On DM's Guild. Probably I'll edit that whole part out because that sounded like way too much like a commercial. So what I read is that dungeon masters really want low-level adventures, or maybe even right above that, like tier 2, 7th through 10th, 12th level. Most campaigns, as far as like if you look at some of the stats, end around level 10 or 12 anyway. A lot of people love high-level gaming, but most campaigns just don't. Most people don't have the stamina to stick with something for more than 6 or 8 or 12 months or however long it takes to get that far, right? Like if you think about it, Wizards puts out 1 or 2 really big epic things a year. So it must be their theory that people have an appetite for 6 to 9 to maybe 12 months, and then they want a new story.
I don't really have any questions. Like I said, I kind of was more of a really new person to the world of D&D. I'd listened to some D&D podcasts, and that's where I was like, this sounds like fun. And then it was like, hey, we should write one. I was like, okay. And I think the best part was it was a week where I was trying to stay off of like screens and media and all that. So he happened to bring in all the D&D books, and that was just really interesting to me. Was actually flipping through the pages and reading all of those kinds of things. So I'm still kind of just like, all right, what's number 2? And kind of ready to just have fun looking at more stuff again.
Sure. I mean, the other thing that really seems to sell really well is monster books. Anything with new monsters, especially if you can find a way to put art in. People seem to like monster books. I think one of the things I've noticed on Kickstarter lately is small PDFs, 10, 20 pages for $3 or $4 or $5, something that people, they're not spending a lot of money. They get something back, but it's not a really big commitment on either the author's part or on the buyer's part.
Yeah,
I think that's big. So one of the things I asked you to think about is a product or a creator that you would recommend that other people support. Do you have something you want to recommend?
Yes, I do. There's a couple different things here. First off, the DM's Guild cover image templates by Matthew Gravelin, Gravelyn. It was this document on the DM's Guild. That's what I used as a template to help create the cover art for the Terror in the Deep. And then there is the Random Dungeon Generator Light by Stephen Bayliss. This was a neat little thing. It's just like a 2-minute tabletop sort of thing. Just roll some die, and that's the dungeon that your players get to go through. And in there was a scalable puzzle in there, which I used in the navigation room for Terror in the Deep.
Nice. So Terror in the Deep, that's the name of your product,
yes,
right?
Yeah, yes, it is. And then the last product I'd like to mention is there's another author by the name of John the Norker, and he was the other person that really that also read the campaign. He gave me a lot of very useful notes, making sure that everything was very concise. So, and he has a couple low-level adventures on his page as well.
Nice. So one of the things that we just talked about was, we're getting a little feedback. Nope, I think it's me when I sit back. One of the things that you just talked about was getting feedback from other creators. I don't know how many you reached out to, but did you find people helpful?
Yeah, especially John the Norker and you as well. Yeah, the two of you were the most useful. The other people that read it, they're just like, yeah, you got some typos, but they didn't say where or so I'm like, I've been staring at this document for a month, so I don't. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to give feedback, and I've been told I'm not the best at it. Sometimes I can sound a little bit negative.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important when you ask for feedback to ask for specific feedback. Like, are you looking for feedback on the story? Are you looking for feedback on the format? Are you looking for typos and that kind of stuff? I think, yeah.
When I'm looking for feedback, I'm mostly looking for it is, does this make sense to other DMs?
Sure. I thought it made a lot of sense. It was super clear, right? My biggest issues were tense and a few other things that were pretty easy, I think, to fix. So that's your first one. Are you planning to do more?
I'd say yes. There's another one-shot idea that I have in mind, and maybe a couple other supplement books, and we'll see what happens. This is very much a part-time hobby kind of thing, but so far we've had a lot of fun making them together.
Yep.
That's great that you've had fun doing it together. I think that's great. What advice would you give somebody else who's a new creator?
Keep it simple. You may have big, sprawling adventures in your head. Just start with that first meeting in a tavern. You want to involve, like, I don't know, some demigod in another plane. That's cool, but you got to start somewhere, and start somewhere where any adventure party can begin. So just start with a fortune teller in a tavern somewhere, and that's all you need to start. Just start at those small places, and if that one works, if you can make the small pieces work, then the bigger ones will work out just fine.
Did you use Microsoft Word, or how did you actually do the layout and the typing and stuff?
The document itself I made in Microsoft Word. The cover art I used Photoshop with. The maps I started off using Dungeon Craft is what I used to create the maps.
Dungeon Draft or Dungeon Craft?
Dungeon Craft.
Okay. I don't think I've seen that one. I use Dungeon Draft a lot in my work, and I've just started using Wild Shape, and actually that's who my second interview with is the
Dungeon Draft. Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay, yeah. I use Dungeon Draft. It's great, super easy to use, and I've started to use Wild Shape. Like I was just going to say, actually the second interview is with the software developer who created Wild Shape, which I highly recommend everybody check out if they want to create perspective views, 3D views, not just two-dimensional things. It's kind of more about creating realistic looking things than it is about creating things like you can with Dungeon Draft. So I think Dungeon Draft is a great tool for anyone that wants to do this professionally as a hobby, or however they want to do it. If they just want stuff for their home games, I really can't recommend that tool enough. And it's a mature tool, right?
Yeah, I was using Dungeon Fog initially.
Okay.
To make the map, but when I found out Dungeon Fog doesn't have a license for DM's Guild, and I think Dungeon Fog wanted like $100 license or something, I'm like, nah, no thanks. So I was able to find Dungeon Draft and was able to recreate them there.
That's an important thing for creators to think about, is the licenses of anything that they use, right? So Dungeon Draft, if you use the assets that come with it, they're commercially licensed. If you buy additional assets from somebody else, you have to check and make sure that they're commercially licensed, because they might not be. Like 2 Minute Tabletop, for example, they want extra money, or don't even do that anymore. I can't remember. They have great assets. So I try to keep the 2 Minute Tabletop assets separate from the ones that I know I can use commercially, so that when I'm building something for home use, I can use the 2 Minute Tabletop ones. And when I'm building something commercially, I can just use the ones that I know are commercially licensed. So it's a really good point to bring up. And it's interesting that you ran into that right away in your first product. Other than this, what's the last adventure you guys played in?
Why don't you tell them about the one we're doing now?
Oh, so actually that's what we're going to be doing after this, is hopefully finishing a mini adventure. One of my really good friends who lives in a different state wrote it. That's kind of a very light twist of Portal 2. Yeah. Taken in, where we're adventurers had in Asia, and we're being tested as we go through different rooms, and then trying to figure out kind of what's going on. So it's that fun kind of conjunction of science and computers in a, medieval fantasy kind of a world. and just how she kind of did it was more of just for us to have fun with. And so today we're fighting hopefully our last battle against GLaDOS.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been really fun, and trying to do that over, which one is that, Roll20?
Yeah, we're doing it on Roll20.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, I mean, we're filming this during the pandemic, or hopefully, knock on wood, near the end of the pandemic. So you guys are playing on Roll20 mostly?
Mhm.
Yeah, that particular venture I dubbed the quest for the character sheet,
Okay.
because it starts off, you don't know what level you are, you don't know your race, class, or anything, and it's like, I want to, we found a rope, okay, I want to pull it, okay, make a strength check, okay, you're actually minus in that one, well, okay, that's now something I now know, so we put a minus there.
That's interesting. Way back in the day, there was like a level 0 adventure where you kind of played, and as you played, you figured out what class you became. So that's similar, but different. I actually kind of like that idea. I might have to steal that idea for my next campaign.
Go for it. Yeah, the quest for the character sheet is what is basically what that is.
Do you have any other questions or anything else you want to say about your product or about, publishing products, while I try to look at my notes here to make sure I asked all the questions?
So yeah, it's currently available on the DMs Guild. We've so far earned like $35 worth, and it's been downloaded like 250 times, which is just exciting to me that so many people are reading it and hopefully playing it, and hopefully they're just having a lot of fun, and it's very exciting.
I'm impressed you got $35 on Pay What You Want so far. I think when I put 3 products out there at the same time, made them all pay what you want, and I think in a week I made like $4. And now one of them I've made hundreds and hundreds of dollars on since I decided to start charging for it. At some point, you might want to start charging for that product, and I would certainly say for your second project, you definitely want to charge. I mean, it's clear that you put a lot of time and love into that product, and you should be rewarded for that, in my opinion. I do understand why you would do your first product Pay What You Want. And I mean, I have a 49-cent product and a couple of 99-cent products. You didn't do any social media, Twitter, or post on message boards or anything that you did this product, did you?
I just reposted it to my own Facebook page, as well as the Facebook page for the DMs Guild.
Sure.
And that's where I encountered you.
Yeah, I saw the DMs Guild post. And like I said, I enjoyed it. I'm definitely going to run it. My most recent campaign took place in Eberron. Unfortunately, it ended way before I was hoping it would end. I'm hoping to relaunch it with a couple of, I lost 2 of the 5 players. So I'm hoping to relaunch it at some point, because I think we are about to get into the really fun part. I moved Phandalin from the Essentials box and the starter set into Eberron, and I basically asked the players, do you want to stay in this town or do you want to explore the whole continent? And they said they wanted to explore the whole continent. So I was about to I was in the middle of running an adventure that I converted from Dungeon Magazine called Riding the Rails, where they're on a rail car going from
I think I saw that one.
Yeah, going from one car to another. And they had I think we'd run 1 or 2 nights of that, and it was going to be about a 3 or 4 night thing.
Yeah, one thing I like about the Terror in the Deep is it can be used as a transition adventure from one continent to another.
I agree. I agree. I think that's great, right? Like, it's so often we just do travel of, you travel for 14 days and nothing happens. I mean, that, whatever. I mean, that's cool. Not every travel needs to be something big, right? But if you're going from one continent to another, in Eberron especially, this is a great way to, if you don't want to use an airship, this is a great way to use a water ship. And I'm definitely going to run it when my players go to Zendrik.
Yeah, let me know how it goes. I'd like to see how it turns out.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to say this. If any of you run any of our products that we demo in any of these or talk about in any of these interviews, feedback is great. I have 11 products. I haven't even been doing this for a year yet. And I think I maybe have 2 comments and maybe 15 reviews. It's just, and
no reviews yet.
Person, I don't do a lot of reviews for all the stuff that I buy, but as a new creator, it sure feels good to notice that you got another 5-star review. Well, I want to thank you guys for your time. Is there anything you guys want to say in closing? I enjoyed having this conversation with you. I'm excited that you guys are, especially you, are new to the game. There's just so many cool surprises awaiting you guys over the coming years as you really start to play more and more and have more characters and encounter new things. It's just, plus, I mean, the technology is advancing so fast. By the time you guys are my age, you'll literally be walking through virtual reality playing this game, if not sooner than you're my age. So I'm excited for you guys. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for your product. Say the name one more time.
Terror in the Deep.
On Dungeon Masters Guild. And right now it's pay what you want. It's probably going to pay what you want forever, would be my guess, but we'll see. You guys have fun tonight, and I will say goodbye to everybody on the internet and goodbye to you guys.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
You betcha. Have a good night.